Sean, first of all, just tell us a little bit of a rundown as to your early memories of rugby league. How did you get involved in this sport?
My story is probably no different to a lot of people who've gotten into rugby league, coming into an area that's not the heartland. So I was born in Bradford. I've always been involved in the game. So the family moved away from Bradford when we were very young, and we were on the North Yorkshire coast for a while. So in a little village just between Scarborough and Firely, if you know the geography up there. Rugby league wasn't massive up there. So a lot of the junior rugby I played was in Hull and district leagues. So we'd travel to Hull and play, go and get battered by people from Hull on a Sunday morning.
I know that story well, mate.
Yeah. So a lot of played in Hull and district. I played for a number of different teams in that area. Yeah. So we started doing, because my dad was a coach. My dad had coached me for a long time, a lot of different teams, and we moved around quite a bit. So we played in Scarborough for a team called the Scarborough Sovereigns when I was young, growing up. Played in English schools competitions, and I was always on the fringes of sort of trial teams, regional teams, that kind of stuff. So I played alongside and against a few big names.
Go on, name them.
Biggest name probably is Rob Burrow.
All right.
So I played against Rob Burrow in a number of trial games, and trained with him in some training competitions. But I think the biggest, when I was under 15s, they put together a 100-man squad for a week-long training camp. This was 97, I think it was.
Yeah.
I can remember 97 because the Sheffield Eagles brought the Challenge Cup with them for a visit. So it must have been 97.
Yeah.
And they won it there. So 100 players, and they split them into 4 squads of 25. So for a week, you train in squads of 25, and they'd have like a competition each night against each other. And they name a top gun. So the best player out of all 100 was named, and that was Chev Walker.
Oh,
He was the top gun at that time. So you still had people like Rob Bowe around, but Chev Walker was the top gun at that age group.
Cool.
So you played against all these people. So because I was young, I was quite skinny back then, not a lot of confidence. I never quite broke through to that level. Played for York Academy at the same time as playing in Hull and district leagues as well. But then we moved around quite a bit, so I played for teams like Catterick Panthers when Catterick had a side. That was the first side that Catterick had. They've developed another side since, but we played Catterick Panthers, which was an experience because you play with a lot of the army lads that are there. So some weeks you can have a really strong side. Some weeks when they're off, you don't have a strong side. So we played a lot of sort of expansionist kind of rugby. So we'd go and set up a team and then go back, and then we'd move somewhere else. So, but then ultimately, I ended up finishing university. So I played at university, played England students, and then looking for work, I always wanted to get into coaching. So I've coached since I was 15 years old. So I've always coached alongside playing. And getting into coaching, I got a job in kind of a way working for the RFL. So the RFL funded a post, same as a lot of people around, that was a community sports coach position down in the Midlands. So I was positioned in Redditch, and I was supposed to be, my job was to coach in schools and develop pathways for school kids to go into the local club, which was the Redditch Ravens, so the new Ravens as they are now, the Redditch Ravens. And there was a cohort of people doing that, so like Pom and Shoffey at Telford, Debbie Drake, who was at Coventry, and people around. So it was like a 6-people cohort of coaches developing the Midlands at that point. I didn't know anything about the Redditch Ravens at the time. So this was 2007. So I came down January 2007. Didn't know anything about the Redditch Ravens. And I thought, right, I'll look up the results of what they're about. And I was like, oh, okay, now what am I getting into here? But I thought to myself, if I'm developing, because when I moved down, you had a couple of people get in touch, come play for this club, come play for this club. But I thought, well, if I'm developing kids to go to the Redditch Ravens, that's the club I play for.
Yeah.
So Redditch Ravens, here we go. Played for Redditch Ravens for a few years. Ended up leaving, taking a couple of years out because we'd done a turnaround with the club when I joined, because the club wasn't doing well results-wise. And I came in and gave them some coaching and what have you, and we finished second in the division in my first year, third in the second year, and then the third year in, there was a bit of a change round in the structure of the club, and it didn't quite gel, the structure of it, so I ended up leaving. I was still involved in the club because I was coaching the junior side, so I had a really strong junior side, and I started with them from 12s, went through to 14s to 16s. We got 3 grand finals in a row. because the junior competition back then was really, really strong. There was a lot of stuff going on, and you can see the product of the junior sections in a lot of the teams today. So people like Denham and that dealt with their product of that program that was going on in the Midlands. In fact, one of the first kids that came to Ravens session was on a Sunday morning. The first session had 2 lads turned up, and again this was 2007, and one of them came all the way through until under 16s, and then disappeared. Same with a lot of the lads, and he turned up on a Leamington Royals team sheet last year. Right. And I was like, because he lives around there now, and so this is brilliant. So I messaged him and said, I haven't been involved in it for a number of years, but I saw the club around. I thought that's brilliant. They've got someone that's still involved. So a young kid called Alex Flinders was a really good centre. He was on Leamington Royals team sheet and scored against us and we played us. But it's brilliant when you see kids that have come through that system and still playing. I think Telford are a really good example of that, because not only have you got young kids playing that are now men playing, but coaches as well.
Yeah.
So Nathan and Joe, again, products of that junior system that Telford had that have come and stuck around, so that retention is really, really good. So I took a couple of years out from playing myself, went away and did like mixed martial arts and stuff, but then I came back into the club. I thought, right, I need to get back into rugby again. And the club had gone downhill results-wise since I left. We'd built them up, they'd gone back down, so I came into it. And again, we had a couple of seasons trying to build up, but then there was a difference in opinion of where we wanted to go. Do we want to perform? Do we want to go and do something constructive? Or do we just want to participate? And I went off, and after the end of the season I went off and started a new club. So I started a club called the South Birmingham Hawks. I don't know if you remember those guys.
No, it's before my time.
So the South Birmingham Hawks, this will have been 2013, might have been. I'm trying to get it right in my mind. 2013, 2014 might have been. We set up the club, and the idea was there were a number of players who were quite frustrated, the same as I was, at the direction of where the Ravens wanted to go. So no disrespect to the Ravens, they want to go a certain way and do a certain thing, but I wanted to go, I'll say, we can push and we can challenge if we have that performance mindset. But the idea was they didn't want to do that, so okay, we'll go and do something different. So we set up a club called the South Birmingham Hawks, and it was really difficult to set up because a lot of people didn't want us to set up a new club. We had backlash from clubs in the Midlands, we had backlash from the RFL, not wanting another club around, which was really strange, and we had so much pushback from people being quite negative and trying to find little ways to stop us progressing.
What do you think was driving that? Because I mean, it's a pretty big geographical area, isn't it, Birmingham? So it seems to make sense to break it down into perhaps.
There's a couple of things behind it for me. So from an RFL point of view, that what we got from the feedback was you can't have too many teams in Birmingham. You've already got the Birmingham Bulldogs. Right. So is there space for a second team? And that showed a bit of lack of knowledge of the area. You've got the second biggest city in the country, there's space for another team. Yes, and then we say, where are you going to get your players from? It's like, there's plenty of players around. I've got players. You're going to steal from other teams? No, I've got players who come in. So all this kind of stuff. But then from another side of view, the people involved in Midlands Rugby League, so from other clubs, who were trying more sneaky ways to stop us, like trying to report us for various things. Apparently we caused a fight at somebody's game. We weren't even there because we were playing against somebody on the same day. So how have we caused a fight? And the RFL were like, "We didn't think you were even there." No, all those kind of things. And I think it's genuinely people are threatened by another club that comes around that's relatively close. So you see another club around and think, "Oh, where the players going to come from? Are they a threat to us? Are they a threat to our cohort of players?" And it's human nature to be threatened by things. But I think it's at some point when you assess if you're strong enough, you don't need to be threatened by other things. But we were a threat to people. We did Merit League the first season, got a few wins, a couple of losses, but got a few wins as well. I thought there was success here. Second season come around, we entered the league properly. First season against Northampton Demons, so the first game. So they were the champions at the time. I thought, okay, that's a test for us. I think they beat us by about 50 in the first game, but it's close at half time. So we'll take that. But then what happened was we didn't have a huge squad. So all of a sudden, a couple of injuries, a couple of lads' work patterns change, a couple of people move away, and then all of a sudden you don't have players. So we got halfway through the season, I think we can't sustain it, because if I send 9 lads to a game,
yes,
the risk of injury of those lads is going to increase. So people say, "Oh, we'll lend you players." It's not about lending players; it's about safeguarding my players. So if I've got a couple of big lads who are used to 10, 15 minutes, 20-minute stints and then coming off, they're now playing 80. The quality of the game is going to go downhill, but most importantly, the risk of injury is going to go up. Emailed at all the clubs, say we're going to pull out the season. And I got a lot of positive feedback because as opposed to turning up on the day like some people do and say, we've only got 10, you've got to lend us players, that puts you in a negative position. Whereas if I tell people early, you can rearrange games, you can put stuff in place. So we took the decision. When we did that, I then got a couple of offers from people. So Coventry got in touch, do you want to come and coach the academy? Because they were setting up an academy at the time. I got Birmingham Bulldogs got in touch, said, do you want to come and help us out? At that time, we just had our first child, me and my wife, and I was tired. And I just thought, I need a break from this. So I said, politely, no thank you to Alan at Coventry. I said, I just need a break from it here. So, and then I said to Mark Abel, who was the chairman of the Bulldogs at the time, so let's do something next year with it. I was thinking, where do we go? Let's do something next year. That was the start of the initial conversation, how Birmingham Bulldogs and the South Birmingham Hawks merged together. So the South Birmingham Hawks never went away, they just merged with the Bulldogs. So right. Mark sort of said to us, and I can't remember whose idea it was, but we both came together and said, why don't we merge the teams and do it together? Let's be stronger together. So kind of the opposite of the threat element of it, it's we could be stronger together because we don't have enough players, and Birmingham had gone quite downhill at that point. I don't know the ins and outs of why, but they'd gone quite downhill at that point from a team that were competing at a sort of National 3 level at the time, and sort of pairing Coventry's rise, and then Coventry went up and Birmingham come down. I don't know why everything happened with that, and I have no idea, and it's not really my interest to know, but this is 2017 now, and I start with the Bulldogs. Didn't know what was going on, so I think, well, I'm going to come into the squad, there's going to be all these players that I don't know. So I turn up, and we've got a lot of that come with me from the Hawks, some new players. I was coaching a university at the time, so I had some university players, and there's barely any Bulldog players there that have come. And there's nobody from the Bulldogs there because Mark had rung up on the first session, I can't make it. So it's just me. So the first season with the Bulldogs, we got a lot of criticism from ex-Bulldogs. So this isn't Bulldogs, like South Birmingham Hawks who was taken over. Well, kind of, yeah, because none of you are around to help. So what do you want it to look like? But we kind of recognised that the Birmingham Bulldogs name was more important than the South Birmingham Hawks name. The Birmingham Bulldogs name carried weight. Yeah. So, okay, we can sacrifice the Hawks name and Birmingham Bulldogs. So the Hawks has kind of lives on in Birmingham Bulldogs as a merger, and you see it with a lot of NRL clubs and some of the sort of mergers that tried to go on in Super League back in like 97, 98, the weird ones.
Hull and Newcastle.
And Sheffield Huddersfield. That was a weird one, wasn't it? So we basically merged it, and for the first season we called it a joint venture on our social media. And it was we sort of built it from there. So there was a couple of players that were stuck around. So Ash, the chairman, who's now the chairman, he was only one of like 3 or 4 players that had been involved with the Bulldogs prior to me getting there. So it was all, from that point, new players, Hawks players, a couple of university players and new players. So from 2017 onwards, the Birmingham Bulldogs were almost like a brand new team to what had gone before. So that's when, the history of coming into the game in the Midlands up until 2017, that era of the Birmingham Bulldogs where we are now. I don't know if that covers it.
No, it's great. Great answer. Just talk to me about coaching and what coaching gives you. Like, what do you take from it, and sort of what do you think you bring to the position of a coach as well?
It's an interesting question because I've always coached. And I've always been influenced by coaches. My dad was my coach for a long time, and my dad coached as a profession for a long time in sports coaching, but also we worked in leisure centres and stuff like that. So it was just generally coaching, and I kind of followed his footsteps in a way because he was a big influence on me. I say he's still around, so he still has a big influence. But also for me, I'm quite externally motivated in terms of seeing other people improve. So when I can take somebody and teach them and see them become more, so it's not necessarily just about improving them at rugby, I see them develop into their potential. And my job as a coach it's not necessarily to teach you how to pass a ball or to teach you how to make a correct tackle. It's a big area which we'll probably talk about in a little bit. It's to give that person the tools for them to figure it out themselves. And when I see that happen, it's really, really rewarding. And I think you can't, it's almost like an X factor kind of thing. When you see somebody develop with something you've given them and you see them take it on and it develops into something more, it's such a massive reward. And there are loads of people that have done that with. I can remember a young kid when I was with the Ravens called Chris, and he was so much smaller than all the other kids. And this was the under 14s at the time. So much smaller than all the other kids. We did a training session, and he acted smaller as well. He was a kid, and at 14 you get some lads who were sort of developing, but he wasn't at that stage yet. Did this session, had the shields out, and he just ran into these shields, and two of the big lads just smashed him into the ground. And he got up, and he was like, you could tell he was hurt, and he was like, "You don't have to do it if you don't want to." He said, "No, I'm going to do it," and he went again. Told everyone else to step back, and he went again, and then again, and then we stopped the drill altogether. I was like, this kid's got something that he doesn't know he's got yet. And then fast forward to the grand final, I put him at starting second row because I knew he wasn't going to back down from anything. But I could see this kid develop within the team framework, and he just needed those people around him. And I can give him that environment to develop. And it's the same with the lads at the Bulldogs now. I can give people the environment to develop. For a lot of people, it's a way to do something different and to escape from things or to challenge yourself. So, yeah, there's skill elements of it. There's tactical elements of it. But for me, it's more a case of seeing someone grow and seeing someone develop as a human being is so much more powerful than, well, that was a nice kick. That's what I get out of it as a coach. And hopefully that's what people see when they come to the Bulldogs. That's what it's more about than anything else. Hopefully that's what people get out of it.
I'm going to rewind right back to the start. I know you said you were from Bradford originally. I'm just interested to know, because you've moved around so much, have you got an allegiance to a certain team? Are you a supporter of anybody?
Yes, I'm a Bulls fan.
Yes.
So
I mean, what's the number now of guests that we've had on here, Bulls fans?
Way too many. Way too many.
Well, depending on the cohort of people that you have in the age group that you have, I'm Bulls fan because I'm from Bradford. My dad played Colts at Bradford Northern, and I've, not lived in Bradford for a long time, but we've been in the terraces at Odsall for a number of games. Not so much that nowadays, but we've been in the terraces when in the early days of Super League when there's like the attendance wars.
Yeah,
if you remember those, when it was like, well,
fondly.
Wigan and Saints had set a record. Well, now it's Leeds Bradford's turn. So we've been in the terraces when Leeds and Bradford have played, and they set this. I remember this really vividly. I can't remember who had the ball. It might have been Robbie Paul skipping across the field. We were losing to Leeds, and it comes across the tannoy that we'd broken the attendance record, and the crowd just lifts. And it's almost like you see the players lift on the pitch, and then we beat Leeds. You come back and beat them.
I was at that game. I remember. Yeah. 24,300 and
awesome.
Something. Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. But yeah, we're in the terraces on that end. So me, mum and dad, two brothers, was in the terraces. So Bradford Bulls, still Bradford Bulls through the difficulties of various like point stocking, administrations, that kind of stuff. NRL, I follow the Cowboys. So that's my allegiances in terms of supporters.
So what's your fondest... I know I'm hijacking this here.
No, you're right.
What's your fondest Bulls memory from the early days, I suppose?
So there's a couple of
early
things.
Days of Super League.
We went to Wembley for 96 and 97 Cup finals as spectators, and it was seeing Robbie Paul do the hat-trick in person was something special. And one of the first players I ever sort of really idolised was Paul Newlove. And watching, then he went and signed for Saints. But I suppose the best one for me was, I can't remember what season it was. You remember Danny Peacock?
Yeah.
Danny Peacock retired.
The Birdman.
Yeah, Danny Peacock retired, and then I can't remember what game it was. After the game,
I know what you're going to say.
He tried to give a speech to everybody and just couldn't follow it through, and all the crowd were chanting his name and stuff like that. And it was like there was just a feeling of connection with the players and the crowd, and I always remember that.
They played like a video of him on the big screen, because it was on Sky TV on it that day. Yeah, and there was like everybody in the crowd was crying. It was it was mad. It was a mad occasion. That was.
I always remember that, and it was that was a really big thing.
Yeah,
and it's weird because it's not a playing thing, but it shows, and this is really interesting what the Bradford are doing now, with Brian Noble coming back in, and the way it's come out on social media saying if you used to be a Bradford fan, come back, because the connection at that time that Bradford had to the fans, and the way that Odsall's built, it creates an atmosphere as well. So people say it's a rubbish ground. Well, actually go there and feel it. Yeah, it's not so bad when you feel it. But what they've done now in terms of Bradford, because I was a bit sceptical when Brian Noble came back, thinking, is this going to work? But then what we've done is like, let's reconnect to Bradford. If you're a Bradfordian, come back. And so that's a really interesting way of doing it, and it's working.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it's that feeling of actually there's a Bradford lad coaching the Bradford side, and you feel it. It means something to the town again. So, yeah, that's probably the thing that I go back to. Someone says, what your memories? There's quite a few, but that's one that always sticks out to me from being a Bradford fan.
Yeah. The Bradford Bulls PR podcast, this is, mate.
You've got to be careful, they might bloody drag you in. Sean, let's just turn our focus to Birmingham Bulldogs at the minute. So, last couple of seasons, up and down, lots of stuff. And anybody that in the Midlands regions that knows you knows a little bit about the history there, and the kind of stuff that's gone on. I really want to come at this in a positive way. But we can't do that without ripping the plaster off first. Yeah. So just tell us about some of the ups and downs from the recent seasons, and and then we can move on to some of the positives that you took from it, and what other clubs, other coaches, other players can perhaps take from it as well.
To try and make a long answer longer, I think most team sports will go in like a 3-yearly cycle.
Yeah.
What you tend to have. So 2017, 2018, 2019, we're there, and we culminate from being a team that was like second tier team, and then we're in the Midlands grand final. We lose to Sherwood in the grand final. But then 2020, there's no season. So COVID kicks in. 2020, there's no season. 2021, there's a handful of games for people that want to play. Nobody wanted to play us. For whatever reason. There was only a couple of teams that would say we'll play the Bulldogs, or a lot of teams said we won't play the Bulldogs, and weren't honest about it.
Why is that? Why do you think?
So at that time in 2019, there was us, there was Derby, and there was Sherwood. Derby switched their fixture on to only play on Sundays for reasons with the ground, I imagine. And Sherwood had gone into the Yorkshire League at that point. So there was us as the team that were at the top. And there were a number of teams that sort of were fairly honest and said, we've got a scratch side, coming to you and getting beat's not going to do us any good.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I can understand that. But it's like, we might be a scratch side as well, because there's a lot of players that aren't playing at the minute because you've still got COVID restrictions, all that kind of stuff. So let's, just... But there are also some teams that Sean Sudworth, who was the chairman at the time, had rung teams up and said, we're trying to get fixtures in place. What have you got? Can we book some in? And the teams would say to him, we're not even going to have many games this year, so we're probably not going to put a fixture list out. Next day, they put a fixture list out on social media. So why did he say no? Right. So again, that whole thing about when I started in 2017, it was really clear that nobody liked the Bulldogs anyway. Like, everybody hates the Bulldogs. Everyone's got their favourite team, and the second favourite team is whoever's playing against the Bulldogs. So and we can accept our place in that. But then what happened recently? So you go into 2022, we win the division. So we beat Coventry in the final of the division. So we come from third there, which we didn't expect to happen, because that's the first full season after COVID. We started off and we're having our first few sessions of pre-season, and there's like 3 or 4 lads. And I'm having like Sean saying, we need to go back to Merit League. This is not a Merit League side. Keep pushing through. And I'd set myself a couple of internal targets, like if I don't get more players by this point, we're going to have to call it. Luckily enough, we got there, finished third in the league, beat Oxford away. And Oxford and Coventry at the time were the 2 teams at the top. So to beat Oxford away was massive. And then to beat Coventry in the final, comprehensively as well, was a real boost. But then Sean was stepping away as chairman for a number of reasons. And then I'd sort of had a couple of guys in mind. But again, the Birmingham Bulldogs, I've mentioned before that not a lot of people had stuck around to help out. For various reasons, we don't have a huge amount of people in the back of it. So it was me, and it was Sean, and it was just a couple of people doing random bits here and there. So what Sean had decided was, we need somebody in to try and take a bit more control. We need more of the social media presence. So we identified somebody who was good at social media and brought this person in. And they came in with a complete lack of understanding or respect of who we were. And what they wanted to do was change everything we were about to suit what they wanted, because they wanted to be known as the person to develop rugby league in the area, as opposed to helping a team out. They wanted to be known themselves. And what it did was it created a massive amount of conflict within the team itself, because people could see that I wasn't being given respect. People could see the motivations, as it were, of what was going to happen. And the way you speak to people matters as well. So when this person comes in and starts criticising this, and it's like, hang on. Don't come in and say, it's not easy to win this league when you've never won it yourself. Right? Have some respect about what we've achieved and done. So we get into the 2023 season. We beat Coventry at home under the controversy of the ticket pricing scandal.
Sounds like a mega tabloid.
Do we call it ticket gate at this point?
I mean, I think we poured a little bit of fire on it ourselves.
In fairness, I don't think you guys did. I think you guys. So
we just had a bit of a laugh with it. Actually,
you guys had some guys from another club on, and it was those two. I'm not going to say it was those two that poured more fire on it. You guys just asked objective questions. And I thought you guys were the only people, because there were a couple of other podcasts who started picking up the story. You guys were the only people who actually looked at it from an objective point of view and said it's creating buzz, which it was.
Yeah.
But the whole ticket thing was, I found out about it the same time as everybody else did. When it got out on social media, I didn't know it was happening. So I've kind of, whether I agree with it or not, I've kind of got to push it now because I don't want to create more conflict in the team. So it's okay, this is what we're going. I was so disappointed with a lot of the responses from a lot of other clubs because we only did it for that one game and then we scrapped it. But there were a lot of other clubs just picking away at us all season. Everybody put our post now, admission free as it should be. Let's let it go. Like we've done it. It's over. It's gone now. So there was that. And then we played Telford. Now the build up to Telford in the game was we just switched training venues, and we turn up on the Wednesday before the game, and the training venue is not booked. So I've got all lads all sitting in the change room, no pitch. Right, what's happening here? And turns out he'd sort of just told the players to come to the venue, but not talk to the venue about it. So the venue said, we didn't know you were coming. So hang on.
So just to make this a bit easier for people to follow, obviously we're not going to say any names. Well, let's call this person X.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So person X.
Yeah.
Is it a mess up? Is it, or is it just?
It was one of I don't know exactly the ins and outs of why it happened, but this is at Avery Fields where Bourneville played, which is where we were at the time, and we'd had a season there pre-COVID, and they're a busy business. So it's not just a rugby club; they're an events business as well. So you have to book. You can't just turn up. But he's told we played Coventry. We'd been training at Kings Norton up until that point. Played Coventry at Avery Fields, and then he says to all the lads, "You're going to play and train here now, all right?" Everyone turns up on the Wednesday training. There's no pitch booked. So I'm there. I'm trying to run around asking people where we're training. So they managed to find us a pitch at the back, which is fine, but most of the session's gone by this point. Bear in mind, we've got Telford coming up. Gets to, and he tries to bring in the coach as well. So other coaches turned up who had no idea who he was. It's like, well, who's this guy? He's going to join in your session, do some coaching. Oh, is he now? Okay. And if I'm in that other guy's position,
was this coach a fairly well-known rugby league?
Apparently, he'd coached rugby union, rugby league at very high levels, and had been involved in Super League and stuff like that. But you can't find any evidence of that.
Right.
So it turns up, and I tried to make it positive, introduce him to the lads. He's going to do a little bit of this, and all the lads are like, who's this guy? He points to one lad and says, like, you had a great game at the weekend. I'm thinking, right, that's over there. You've mixed them up. I can see why you've mixed them up. Because the third lad talking about didn't play at the weekend. So you're thinking about another guy who looks a bit similar. And he just does these little bits to the side of lads. I'm thinking, if I'm the coach coming in, I make contact with the head coach and say, we're going to work together. How do you want to work it? There's an element of respect that you do with that. I've been around a lot of coaches for a number. I've been lucky enough to learn from a lot of coaches down the line and know how these things work. Comes in and it just disrupts the session massively. We go to Telford, and I think the stars aligned a lot for Telford on that day as well. Like Telford were ready for that game, and we got battered by about 50 points. But prior to the game, we turn up and everyone say, "Where's the kit?" Well, person X has got the kit and he's not here. So he turns up about 30 minutes before kick-off. And well, the sat-nav don't work, it takes you to the wrong place. Well, everyone else is here. Everybody else has managed to get here on time. So the lads are fuming. You get the kit on, we do like a 15-minute warm-up and then into the game. So nobody's ready. A couple of players missing, a couple of people out of position, but we had a strong enough squad. So no excuses on squad strength, but the build-up was so disrupted, and then at half-time, we've got a job on here. Person X comes up, flag on the go, interrupts the team talk, and all the lads are like, what's this? And then after the game, he just bails, just goes off. Right. So I've given the lads a doing after the game, and frankly to a couple of lads, if that's the best you can do, don't come back, because, I'm not that kind of coach, but sometimes you got to let lads know, like, that's not what we expect. A couple of lads didn't come back after that game. Fair enough, they don't want to push it to that level, that's all right. We're not for you in that case. Wednesday comes round the training after, and obviously we got this. It's just quite short because we're all exploded. Wednesday comes round, and I get a message off person X. This other coach is coming in. I suggest you do your warm up and then let him take the rest of the session. I'm like, no, that's not what's going to work.
That's fucking hell.
Because these lads don't know him and they play for me, And I don't want to sound arrogant, but these lads are buying into what I do. I'm happy for him, this other coach, to come in and I'll talk to him and build a session plan together. I message the coach, how do you want to work it, all that kind of stuff. And I said, but you can't just come in and take over. And when you're dealing with people who've never heard no before, then this is what happens. They don't like hearing no, so they just explode and go off. So at that point when I'd said no, it was off. And then it was a case of the whole social media stuff with, we got kicked off our own social media. So we had a big following on social media. We got all kicked off, and that's where to restart our social media. And a lot of financial issues that happened I'm not going to go into. We're still recovering. So that was 2023, so now 2025. We're still recovering from the debt we got put in and the damage that it did to us in the community with potential junior sides as well, because they did that without preparing properly for it. So the positive from it really is that we didn't lose players through it. Players stuck around. The physios stuck around because they saw what was going on and saw how we were trying to push through. So the credit goes to the players really in terms of the resilience that the players had to push through it to make the final in that year as well, because we were bottom of the league at halfway through and then sort of build back from it, because we played Oxford. The next game after the Telford game, we played Oxford and got beat away, but just by a couple of points. But the lads sort of saw there's something here to fight for. So we pushed through and got to the final that year. And I think I made a couple of tactical blunders in the final and a couple of injuries, but it was more of a coaching thing why we lost the final. And then I think if you hadn't have played, then I don't think we'd have lost, in fairness. So I think because you changed the game when you came on.
I'll take that. That was my swan song.
What do you mean there was a lot more yellow cards when you came on?
But we can talk about the game if you like, but it was, I was so pleased with the lads coming through that season, still together, because it would have been easy for a few lads, and some of the things that were getting sent, messages getting sent to the ground. So Avery, the people that ran Avery Fields were fantastic for us, because it would have been easy for them to believe what was being sold to them. But they said to me, we see what's going on. We saw what was going on the whole time.
Yeah.
So we know this isn't you, and we're here. Pay us when you can. That kind of stuff. So the people at Avery Fields were fantastic. It was a shame that we damaged the relationship with Kings Norton because of how that was done. I didn't know how it was done, but we damaged the relationship with Kings Norton because the people at Kings Norton were fantastic for us. So the great staff at Kings Norton, great staff at Bourneville. So we've been lucky enough to be around good people that kind of protected us at that point. And we then put an interim chairman in place for that season, so it got Dan McHugh. Now, we didn't do a huge amount in terms of really sort of team structure stuff, but what he did, he protected me at that point. So having good people around you is really, really important. So he protected me when I needed someone to ring up and say, I don't know what we're doing. So he was just there as that safety net for me at that point. But we also learned that the reason all this happened was because we left ourselves as a club vulnerable. As a club, as I said before, we didn't have a lot of structure in the background. Thought we'll just coach lads, we've got chairman in place, just do some bits and pieces. We never really had in place the constitution that you need. We never really had the documents to protect us because we didn't have those things. Somebody was allowed to essentially infiltrate without due process and due diligence. So it's a lesson to learn for us, and maybe to anybody else listening, is to protect yourself as a club. These bits of paper that the RFL will send out, you have to do these things because otherwise you're at risk. We talk about head injury risks and training, we talk about safeguarding and welfare, but actually if you want your club to continue and club to thrive, you've got to protect your interests. We didn't protect our interests because we didn't believe that anybody would come in with such an intent, but that's what we learned from it. But also, if you've got good people around you, you can get through. We get now, and 2024 comes around, and again, I was so pleased with 2024 as a season, because again, every now and then you lose players, you get players in. We didn't really lose many players. We've got a few new players in. 2023, 2024, you've got points difference finish for the league leaders. So us and Telford finished 2023 level on points difference. 2024, us Telford again, but Nottingham all finished level on points difference. But in terms of building the club back up from potentially going out of business, we were able to field a second team. We played Aston Warriors in a friendly, put out a second team. We hadn't done that before in my whole time there. So I was like, look at where we are now, just having faith and sticking by your own values. We run on values more than anything else. We know who we are, what we're about. And it never worked when Person X came in because their values were so different to what we had that it was never going to work. That's where we come out the other side of it. We still know who we are. We still, that same value, that same mindset. And it comes from not just me, but the players themselves. So the challenge to any player that comes into the Bulldog is, can you contribute to that culture that we have? If you can't, it might not be for you, because players have to fit in to the culture. You can't just have any player coming in. They have to fit in. So that's kind of where the ups and downs of it. We try to mask as much of it as possible externally. I don't get involved with a lot on social media with it because it'd be so easy to fall down that. We've had so many people criticise us in years past. Apparently we pay players all the time, all this kind of stuff. And it's like, I wish we could. Wish I could get paid, But we've had so much criticism from people, it's just, you've got to let it go sometimes, because otherwise you can just go down that spiral of negativity. So when this was all happening, it was quite a dark time and it was quite difficult, but to be able to come out the other side of it with success was a real good achievement, not for me, but for the club, for the players. So yeah, we're very up and down, very, very emotionally draining as well. But we're still here and other people aren't.
And I think this is where this episode come from. You come on, just kind of almost dot the I's, cross the T's, big full stop, move on. So and I think the way you've presented the whole situation there is, very honourable, if you like, because it's been quite balanced. I think there's equal parts responsibility. Actually, what part did we play? What part did Person X play, and what did we allow him to do? And I think it's really interesting that you say that. What springs to mind for me is that fundamentally we play a sport. We're involved in a sport, but it's people we're dealing with, and it seems to me like lots of people were crossed, and it just shows the buy-in that those players must have had to still be there today. Yeah,
it's getting less and less now, but I've got players that I played with. So I was playing at the Ravens, when I played at the Hawks. I think I said there was only one last season, but players kind of follow me because I've played alongside them, and they know, or those players will know, I won't ask anything of them that I wouldn't have done myself. The challenge for me now is actually now there's none of those players around anymore, is how do we get them to buy in when they don't know that? But again, that's it, as you rightly say, it comes down to people. You can have a drills manual, you can put all the drills you like out in place, but actually if you're connecting to people. And again, this is what I've learned from coaches in the past. All the cones on the pitch doesn't make a difference, because cones in training, there's no cones on the pitch. And ultimately, when things go wrong, can you rely on the people next to you? So instilling in people a sense of honour, a sense of value, a sense of integrity is really important. And again, giving the people the tools to find it themselves. And I think that's why people tend to come back to us and tend to stick around as well, because we get players from all over the place. So we draw from all over Birmingham, but also we draw from south of Birmingham, from Bromsgrove, we draw from Dudley, Walsall, Sutton Coldfield. We've got such a massive area, people coming back to us. And it's the environment that we create that I think brings people in. And I'm lucky to be a part of that. And I'm lucky and privileged that people allow me to teach them. And if I can keep doing that, then I will keep doing it, because it gives me so much to allow people to progress.
As we run into the season now, I'm hijacking this now.
It's all right, no.
And as we run into this season now, you're talking about values and club identity, culture and that kind of thing. Is this something that you present and discuss ahead of the season, or is it just something that there's a majority of the team understand it and they just set an example?
It's not something we sit all the players down and talk about at the start. And I'd love to be able to do that. But the problem we have with that is how much time have you got? We're not a pro team. We don't have multiple sessions. We've got one session a week, and I've got 90 minutes. And at the start of the season, and I don't know what it's like for other clubs, I can speak about Birmingham Bulldogs. At the start of a season, the first 4 weeks in particular, you're not going to have your full squad there, because a lot of them, we've got a lot of lads playing good level rugby union. They're involved in the business end of their season, so we've got lads in promotion fights and relegation fights, and the onus on them to Tuesday and Thursday they're training there. So if I get them to train on a Wednesday as well, because we train on Wednesday as well, they could do it, but also there's an element, I've got to understand these lads have jobs, these lads have personal lives. So it's okay. So we blend it in. So I take a more individual approach with lads. So it's more of an individual conversation with people. So messaging lads or talking to people on the phone and saying, like, where do you want to go this season? New people will come in and say, this is what we're about. So somebody will message on social media, I want to come and join the club. I say, okay, where have you been? What experience have you got? All the general questions you'd have. I say, okay, then I'll say, this is what we're about. If you feel you can contribute to that, if not, there's other clubs out there. So I have no problem if people don't want to play for us, want to go play for another club. Absolutely fine, because if people are playing the game, we're winning. Yeah, so it's more about the individual connection, because that spreads. So if you talk about emotional intelligence, people can spread emotion to each other. So I allow people almost a free rein to talk to each other as well. And then when we're in training, it's just reinforcing those points. So you don't have to do big speeches when you're doing these things, and because big speeches isn't coaching. Anybody can sit in a changing room at the start and play the speech from any given Sunday.
Brilliant speech, by the way.
It's great, but it's not coaching.
Yeah.
So you see it on social media quite a bit, don't you? You've got coaches in front of American football teams and we're up and down reading off a piece of paper. That's not coaching. Coaching is connection, and coaching is reinforcing what's already there. So a speech before a game don't work because we already know what we're going to do. It's just making sure that everybody feels like they know their place. So it's more about individual connection within the team frame. Now that works for us. So I'm not saying that's how it should be done. That works for us. And empowering people to just make sure that if somebody's new, you can talk to them as well. So creating that safety net for people. That's how we do it in terms of values, in terms of personal responsibility and team responsibility.
You spoke earlier about obviously with Person X there was some issues with the club, and you sort of kind of lost the identity of the club a little bit, especially on sort of social media. If there's anybody out there looking to set up a new club, what sort of positions should they have in place? What sort of documentation, and just a bit of advice for them, really?
Well, the first step, and I'm not necessarily the best person to speak to on this.
I know you're a head coach, but you've had to live some.
So we do it. We're quite minimalistic, not by choice. So you need a chairman, you need a secretary, you need a head coach. Ideally, if you've got an assistant coach to help out as well, that's brilliant because it takes away the burden. And there's various other things you need in place. The best bet is to talk to the people at the RFL because they'll tell you what you need. You need a welfare officer, you need a game day manager. The RFL are good at giving that guidance to clubs and saying that's what you need. And we have potentially in the past not taken that advice on board. I think, we know what to do. That's just a guideline. Well, actually, that's stuff you need to put in place. And there's so much more regulations around our game these days. But the RFL are good at giving that advice out. It's there, it's accessible to people, it's on the website, but also if you email them or speak to them, they'll tell you. So having your club welfare officer, having a game day manager, having a first aider, having a physio, it's all these things that make people feel safe on the pitch. We've had a couple of seasons where we've not really had physios, and it makes a difference because lads don't feel they can really go for it. When you have a physio, and a physio that's good as well, they need the physio needs to invoke confidence from the lads as well. So the physio's there and they know what they're doing.
It's become almost an expectation now, isn't it, to have a decent physio?
Well, I would say, we've always got this competition with rugby union, haven't we? And I think, from our point of view, one of the reasons why we even set this podcast up, because it was like, if we can make rugby league feel like something more than just a kick around on a Saturday or a Sunday or whatever, then we can attract these union players and we can keep hold of them. And having a good first aider, physio, kit mat, shirt set up in the change rooms before the game and all that is just all those little things.
It's the same things as the connection, feeling a connection. So the little things you say to reinforce things, to reinforce drills, but to reinforce that personal feeling, those little things are all the same. So 2019, I need 2018 as well, but 2019 we go away to Sherwood in the cup. There was a cup then, which we should bring back, get all the divisions together in a cup. We go to Sherwood in the cup and we're losing. It's a fantastic game, really, really tough game, but a fantastic game. And Sherwood is a difficult place to go. It's a hostile place to go in a good way, and that's not negative to Sherwood. But if you go to an away ground, it's hostile. It's because the crowd don't like you. they're not throwing stuff or anything like that, but it's an environment. It's an old-fashioned environment, so it's difficult to go away. But when I'm going, and I'm on my own, it was the same in the final that year as well, the grand final. It's just me, and I'm trying to set up the kit, I'm trying to coach and all that kind of stuff. And then Sherwood have got all these people in place, all these positions that we talked about. All the shirts are set up. It looks the business, and it was the same in the final. You look across at Sherwood, and they've got all these people supporting the team, and across at us, it's just me. This is why we lost. It's less to do about stuff on the pitch. It was off the field. And in a way, I'd sort of said to myself, I don't need all that kind of stuff around me. I'm still quite insular in a lot of stuff. I still don't like letting people in because I've been let down so much. Trying to take on too much has a detrimental effect to the team. And that's what happened on that day against Sherwood, because Sherwood were a team. And not just the people on the pitch, the people off the pitch as well. I think, and I might be wrong, I don't want to misquote anybody, there was a player who was on a family holiday or something like that, and it came back for the game. I was like, that shows the commitment to the team that we didn't have, because half our squad were on the pitch the night before. So they care about this game, we don't. And it was like, it showed. We reset the culture after that. But yeah, there is guidance out there for clubs setting up, but you've got to make sure you have the foundations in place, because otherwise you're vulnerable, and we were vulnerable and almost fell because our foundations were compromised.
It's a bit like car insurance, isn't it? Nobody wants it. You don't want to buy it, but then when you need it, you're just like shit. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Can we talk a little bit about Midlands rugby in general? Because I feel the Midlands kind of doesn't quite get the respect it deserves. Yeah. But I think now we've got an incredibly strong competition, both sort of Premier Division, we've got a new Division 1, and there's merit teams, there's new teams cropping up all the time. I mean, just talk to me a little bit how you feel Midlands rugby is in general.
I feel that Midlands rugby at the moment is its strongest position it's been in for a long time. I think you're right in terms of there's a misunderstanding about Midlands rugby, and we've been saying it. I've been in conversations with people from the RFL for a long time. I used to work for the RFL, and since I've left the RFL, and talking to people that try to run the game, if you treat the Midlands like a development area, it's going to be a development area. If you treat it like a competition, it'll become a competition. But for a long time, we treated it like it was just this nothing competition. There was no feeling of achievement when you won. There was no urgency to win games. We always restructured based upon the lowest common denominator. How can we make it more accessible for people to play? Just get games going on. Doesn't matter the format. This year, building on the past couple of years of success, the closeness in the competition, and we mentioned that the past 2 seasons, the top spot's been decided on points difference. This year, the restructure, for me, has been the best restructure that's done in a long time. And I think because they've listened a bit more to the steering groups that people have put in place, like Joe Shepherd from Nottingham is a real good driver for this. And I think it could be a coincidence that Nottingham were away in the Yorkshire League and come back, and potentially Joe's put a bit more passion behind it. There's other people who are all involved, of course, but I think Joe spoke really well when he was on the podcast before. I don't know if he was in person or on the phone, talking about the difference between the Yorkshire Leagues and the Midlands. And there's not, the difference for me is that it's just more experience. It's people knowing the game more. But you have to give people game time to know the game. So this season now everyone's playing home and away. But what's more important to me is that there's an element now of promotion and relegation. Division 1 will feed into the Premier Division. So there's something to play for. It means something now. So I think doing that, and also having the Division 1 as not just an extension of a merit league, it gives people a feeling of achievement to win. And it means that actually the Midlands League is something to be proud of. Which I feel that, and again, speaking of my own experience, it's almost handled like it's not that. And this comes across in the way certain admin things that are run. Match officials, for example, it's not been great last year in terms of the admin side of it. And speaking to people who run the match officials, you can tell that they don't really see the Midlands as a priority. It's like, well, why are we not a priority? Because we're still a league of people playing the game. So the restructure has really given it something this year, I feel. And the proof is in the pudding, as they say, so we'll see. But we've got to allow people to feel it. Again, we keep talking about connection. You feel connected to the competition. Give it the prestige. So much more we could do. We've talked a little bit before, throwing some ideas around about end of season awards and that kind of stuff. I know the Hurricanes are quite keen to do some stuff around the community and building up that sense of an elite competition. But from a player-wise, there's no difference for, players are very, very good players down here, but they don't get the chance to showcase. So getting back into the Challenge Cup, getting that route back into the Challenge Cup. So Sherwood were in it in 2020, maybe when they won in 2019, they went to the Challenge Cup. Getting the route back into it is brilliant this year because it gives people that impetus to go forward.
Yeah. Just talking about that route into the Challenge Cup, though, do you think there's still too many hurdles to get in there? I'll get, for example, if you play in Scotland, I think there's probably only 4 or 5 teams in Scotland that division gets a Challenge Cup spot.
Yeah.
If you play in Ireland, there's again, I think there's probably only 4 or 5 teams in Ireland. There's a spot in the Challenge Cup. If you're playing in the Midlands, you've got to play, then go into the Harry Jepson. You've got to potentially play the best from the west of England and the best from London. It feels like quite diluted. Do you stand by the Midlands should have it should have a Challenge Cup spot?
Definitely. And I think the same would go for the teams from the west of us. Anybody going to Harry Jepson, it's like, well, why are we going through so many hurdles to get into it? So it's almost like, so why are we saying that we have to prove ourselves more than the teams from Scotland or the teams from Ireland? And again, no disrespect to those teams, they might be fantastic teams, but we have our own very valid competition. So why do we have to go through these hurdles? And I think...
Yorkshire, Lancashire gets loads of places for obvious reason, but surely those can be taken down a little bit.
If you think Nottingham have come from Yorkshire Division 1, so they were Division 1 in Yorkshire, I think, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yorkshire Division 1. And now they've got to go through that whole system of going it, whereas how many teams in Yorkshire wouldn't have to go through that system? So they were in the bottom division in Yorkshire. They were Yorkshire Division 1. Sherwood were Yorkshire Division, I don't know what they were, but they weren't the bottom division. Again, so they were creditable teams in the Yorkshire division. They've just come back down. I keep saying down. I say geographically they've come back down. I think it's the terminology is really important as well, isn't it? So we're not saying they've come back down.
Yeah, but I suppose we're a little guilty of that as well, aren't we?
Everyone is. Yeah. So go a bit of a tangent. So, and again, this is from experience of speaking to people. So you got your team, you're setting up, and a new player joins in, and people from the Midlands will hear this player's coming in. He's from Leeds. Ooh, he's from Leeds. It'll be good then. Well, it might be shit. But an Australian will come over. Well, it's from Australia. Brilliant. Well,
I know a lad from Bradford. He's terrible.
That's why I don't play anymore. Yeah. So it's actually talking to ourselves as if we're in elite competition.
Yeah.
We haven't been before, but now we are, and it's almost like treat ourselves that in like elite competition, and people will follow. And I think we go back to the point about competing against rugby union. The way I see it is we can't compete against rugby union. We have to find a way to work together with rugby union. The challenge with rugby union is that we haven't been around as long. So the problem we have is if we say to a lad that's come along to the Birmingham Bulldogs for the first time, you're playing for us now, you're not playing for your rugby union club. It's not the fact that they don't like the game as much, but what you're asking lads to do, if they've been in that rugby union club since 9 or 10 years old, you're asking them to take away that connection they've had there. They've been there since they've been little kids.
Yeah.
They're asking to take away what they've grown up with.
Yeah.
You can't just say...
Well, it's a complete identity shift, isn't it?
Exactly. So how do we blend together? So, like I said, our first few weeks, we've got an understanding. I know that lads aren't going to come for some of the parts of the session. As long as we're honest about it, I'm not expecting you to, because I understand. And it's understand towards the end of the season, okay, well, this is where our business end is. Can you talk to your coaches and say, actually, I might not go to this pre-season sevens tournament. I've got rugby league to finish off with. Those are the conversations we have at both ends of the season. I don't think you compete with rugby union. I think you gain a greater understanding of how you can work together. And I think that's helped us because coming down to the Midlands when I first moved down in 2007, I saw the competition of people trying to compete, and I saw how it didn't work. And I think there's still people around that tend to work in that way, but you can't compete. We don't have the means to compete. So reframe it, work together with the people.
Yeah,
I think a club that does that really well is the Quantums. I think it's only a relatively small union club, and that probably helps. You haven't got like, a massive, like a second, third, fourth, fifth, team and a Colts and all this kind of stuff. But that club is really integrated, the league and the union. It's almost one club. So they do it really well, and that's an interesting point you make. I've never really thought of that. I suppose it's my own prejudices, if you like. You know what I mean? You're like that. Well, we've got to beat them. You know what I mean? We need to attract their talent and take it off them. But there is a call for that bit
well,
of...
we've all got prejudices about things. Nobody can ever say, I don't have any prejudice or anything. We all have that. So it's because of how rugby league has been treated in society, should we say, for a long time. There's so many things about it, isn't there? Where the game's been made illegal.
And still to this day, in the House of Parliament even,
So we all wear that. We all have to fight our cause for the game, but there are ways to fight the cause. And there are wars that don't need to be fought. So it's like actually, and I've been guilty of it in the past before. And it's like, people should be playing rugby league. Well, yes, I want to play rugby league, but I don't need to go aggressively into it. I can sort of work with people instead. So I've learned the challenges of coming down to it. Again, you play rugby and you play rugby league when you're from a rugby league area. You come down, it's a completely different shift. I first moved down to Redditch and I was sort of speaking to people, and I'd say to people, kind of coaching rugby league, and they say, "Oh, you're going to come down and play a bit of union." And I played a bit of reunion at school, but it's never been my sport. So I might come down and play a little bit. Are you going to come play rugby league? No, I hate rugby league. Okay. Have you ever played it before? No. Have you ever watched it? No, just hate it.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
But that's what we were up against.
Yeah.
And the opinions have changed a lot because of the growth of what we've done. There's relationships with a lot of rugby union clubs in sort of South Birmingham, North Birmingham, with the Aston Warriors, and in Bromsgrove, those kind of areas, because they've been integrated. The Ravens have played at a lot of different grounds. We've played at a few different grounds. If you leave a good impression, people know you're about and know what you're about. So go back to values, go back to the people. If people know you're a good person and know you're not going to mess them around and treat them poorly, they'll probably welcome you back at some point. So we always have the issue, like this season, for example, our first 2 sessions can't be at our training ground because we don't have pitches available. It's always the issue because there's floodlights, certain allocations, so we've got to find somewhere to have our first 2 sessions. So it's like, okay, let's talk to the people that we know. There's always ways to figure it out if you've left a good legacy behind.
Yeah.
So it's like, so what's your legacy that you leave behind? And people can either think we don't want to work with that person ever again, or, oh, actually, they need help. We'll help them. So it's how you conduct yourself is important.
Have you started training yet for this season?
So we start training on the 5th. So we always think we like to give ourselves like an 8 or 9 week running, which I think works well for us. It's not too much. Ideally, you want more, but again, you've got to bear in mind the elements that are around. Again, speaking to Birmingham, I can't speak to other areas, but there's so much going on union-wise that I can't put too much more into it because I'm asking people to do too much. People are going to get burnt out. It's like, especially like if people are playing a high-level rugby union. So I've got players that play like front row rugby union, and I don't know a huge amount about rugby union, to be honest. I think my base knowledge has kind of been surpassed by how that game's evolved. But I understand if you play front row, your neck and your shoulders are going to be a bit battered. So if I say to us, right, you now need to train 3 times a week and we're going to put you in and we'll do some wrestle sessions with you, it's not going to work. So we go as efficient as possible. So I'll plan my 8 and 9 weeks of training based upon where do I want to be at this point. I like to reverse engineer. So if I want this, that needs to be in place by this point, this needs to be in place by this point. So we reverse engineer the process in terms of planning. And as long as people are honest, we can build from it. And the honesty is important because people will know that people aren't just not showing up. We had it when we started. I've had it at other clubs. We had it when we started, where people will only turn up if they know other people are going to be there. It's like, well, how many's turning up? Well, we've got 7 or 8. That's not enough for me. Yeah. Well, if you turn up, it's one more. And if everybody else turns up, we've got 20. So just turn up. But you have to. And this isn't an amateur player thing. This is a general rugby player thing. Sometimes you have to really push people and say, text them, message them, keep coming. I read, I think it was on, I can't remember whose podcast it was. Maybe James Graham's podcast, when he was talking about having to fly over to New Zealand to play, and they're saying and they collected everyone's passports like at the start of the week because they didn't trust them to bring the passports. So it's not generally amateur players. It's everybody as people. It's like, I'm going to tell you. I know you're not going to remember. I'm going to have to tell you again and tell you again. So sometimes it drives you mad. I've got to chase up, but you've got to rationalise that. It's not just, they're not doing it to annoy me. It's just that's how people are sometimes. And it's an amateur sport. There's a lot of other things they're thinking about that aren't rugby league. So this is not the be-all and end-all for people. It's not the be-all and end-all for me. It's like, this is what we do because we enjoy it. So if I can get into the mind a little bit, and the more people do it instinctively, the better we are. But there's always an element of trying to push people.
I just want to spend a bit of time with your team, your players. Is there anybody that kind of perhaps made a bit of a debut last year or has been developing nicely that you're really excited to see play this year?
I think there's a lot of players who are due for big breakout seasons. We're going to make a shift in terms of captaincy this year. So there's the shift in terms of captaincy, the shift in terms of club identity this year. So we're going to have a new logo and all that kind of stuff. So nothing wrong with the old logo, but there's a connotation with the old logo to everybody that ran the Bulldogs before we started. So there's always a feel of we're caretakers of this club. The Bulldogs used to be involved in it, and you heard people say, "Well, the Bulldogs was our club," like, but you haven't been around for 8 years. Now it's been us for 8 years. So we're going to change the logo, and we're going to launch that in sometime later this week. We've got in touch with a really good graphic designer who helped us out with that. So thanks, Cal.
All right.
Oh, I thought you said really good.
I didn't know I got the job.
But it was weird because I sent a load of messages around the graphic designers in Birmingham, got nothing back from people, and I thought, a bit stuck here. And then I saw some of yours on social media. I thought, why am I being daft? Why don't I just have a chat? But yeah, so you've designed us a new logo that kind of redefines the image of what we've got. So again, there's nothing wrong with it, but we want a different image to take us forward. But then in terms of the rebranding of the captaincy as well, because we've got people that have been captains before that might not be playing too much this season, one who's injured, and one who just isn't going to be around that much. So I want to empower a few people, but I'm not going to name them just now.
Right.
But a couple of people who joined last season. So I've got a lad, and again, this goes into the culture of things, how people fit into the culture. I've got a lad called Reese who joined last year and didn't get a lot of game time because he just didn't quite fit into the gameplay that we were doing. He played down in London, so he's come from London, played down in London, and he just couldn't quite get the speed that we were playing at, and couldn't quite get the move set, wasn't as physical as we'd like him to be, but he was always there. Yeah. Always turned up, even if he didn't get a game, always came and trained. And it's like this season, he's almost like paid his dues, if you like. And he's not the only one that's ever done that. Other players, sometimes I won't play a player if I think you're going to get hurt or you're not ready. I'll put the player welfare first. So he's going to, I'm hoping that he's going to play a bit more of a part this season because he's been loyal and consistent for us. We've got a lad that's hooker a half called Joey, who only played a couple of games last year, who very, very good player. But he tasted it last year for us. And now through the off season, he's been very vocal in terms of, right, I'm really into it. So really keen to see him develop into it. So there's players that I think it's their time to come into it. I could riff off a load of players about it, but sometimes there's players who I've got to let him marinate for a little bit before he's ready. And I think there's some players like that. We've had it before. So a lad called Kieran, who played a lot this year and the back end of last year, was in the same position as Reese. So at the start of last season, he wasn't getting much game time because I was like, you're not quite ready. But then he got ready, kept coming, and it's like, right, now I know I can play because I know who you are. So it's a lot of these, and the captains that I'm going to launch, they're going to be, one of them is because he leads on the pitch. One of them is like, if I give you the power, if I empower you, I don't think you realise what you can do for other people. So they're going to launch a little bit, but we haven't. The reason I'm not saying it is because we haven't launched that internally yet. So I know who they are, but again, it's about, especially the vice captain we're going to launch is like, I don't think he realises how much of an influence he can have. If I let him have that influence, not only can he grow, but you can see how he can help other people as well. So that's going to be quite an interesting shift for us. And then the shift to Woodrush. We're going to play at Woodrush Reunion this year. Again, no problem with anything at Bourneville, but just the shift to Woodrush makes sense for us at the moment. So we leave Bourneville with fond memories. Very happy with how we've been treated by the staff there, in particular Mary Louise, who takes care of the business side of things, was fantastic to us all the way through the issues that we had. But going to Woodrush now makes sense for us for a number of different reasons, and hopefully we're going to be able to build from there. And we played a couple of games there last year, and we kind of got a feel actually this is a really good club.
Yeah.
So we're looking forward to a lot of changes this season, whilst keeping a lot of consistency, but a lot of changes in the brand and changes in sort of the outward identity of the club to make us sort of more appealing to people, So we want to get involved with that club.
Just one final question from me about you personally, and then, you know, perhaps we'll do a bit of a plug for the club. But I'm just really, you scream of someone who is that people person. You like connections. You know, you understand the importance of communication, and you seem to feel everything that goes on in this club. And I just wonder if this team selection, you know, putting teams down on making that pick, is that something that comes natural to you?
Team selection is really difficult because one of the things I like to pride myself on, but also one of my biggest weaknesses, is loyalty. So if I've got a player players that's been with me for a long time, who showed me some loyalty, but they're not performing, I find it really difficult to drop that person. And it's very, very difficult to then to have the conversation with people. I've always said to people, I'll be honest with you if I drop you. You know, I've had difficult conversation with Ash, the chairman, because there's a couple of occasions where I said to him in the past, I can't play you. You're just not doing it for me at the moment. And you know, we've come through the other side of it, and I think a lot of lads appreciate the honesty. But internally, it's very difficult for me to sort of say to someone that has shown me loyalty, to then say to him, I can't play you this week.
Yeah.
Because they might not perceive it as me being disloyal towards them, but I feel it, and I hate it. But picking a team, it gets harder season on season. The first couple of seasons, it's easy because, well, have I got 13 to start with?
Yeah.
So it's easy to put them in place.
Yeah.
But when you start getting competition in the squad, it's okay, how do I justify it? And then you've got to put out to this. We talking about the values of the team. We put out team selection criteria early on as well. There's always ways to not flex things, but individual circumstances as well. So we've got one lad who is in the army, so he can't train because he's on base for the week. But lads understand that. So if he's available, we'll pick him because of what he does on the pitch. But we know that he can't train, but we know the reason why he can't train. So, but if there's lads that are just not showing up, I'm not going to pick you because you know you're supposed to show up. But if we've not had that luxury before, but if I can set the standards out early enough, this is how we're going to run it, then people buy into it and people understand it. It makes it easier, but I still feel it. I don't like letting people down. So team selections can be quite difficult, and that's the burden of being the coach sometimes. It is hard to do those things.
I just wonder if we could ask you for two messages now. The first one being to all those people that did support you through the tough times and you know, that tumultuous period where you didn't know whether Birmingham Bulldogs was going to exist, and you know there was long-lasting scars getting gouged into your very identity. What would you say to those people?
I can't really put it into words. The people that were around us at the time. I'll try, but it's difficult because the people that were there know the burden that we had to carry at that time, and all I can say is thank you to everybody that was around at the time. And I think maybe I'd not shown people enough of how I was affected by it. I tried to not let people know I was being affected and tried to brush it off. But there are people that supported me and the people that are still around that did support me. And I'll always be thankful to those kind of things because those are things that stay with you.
Yeah.
So I'll always be thankful to the people. Like I said, the people in the club, but the people at Bourneville that run Bourneville, they were there. They didn't have to be. It would have been easy for them as a business to say, right, well, you owe us money, so no. But they chose to value us and trust us as people. And that stays. And I'll never forget those kind of things. So I can say thank you to people. But actually, it's there's always going to be something in me that remembers these kind of things. I always remember people that put a shirt on for me. You know, I always remember if you to put a shirt on for me and gone and put yourself at risk for me. So I always remember players that have played, but I always remember the people that have put themselves out there in different ways. So the people that were around, that stuck around, I'll never forget it because it mattered. And it mattered more than people think and more than it matters more than I let on to people because it could have gone really badly, but it didn't. And that's because of the people that stuck around.
And then the second message then is like, if you've got, you know, people that are listening to this and perhaps they're beyond the playing days, you know, but there's other ways they could help with the club, get involved. And, you know, what would you say to them and how would they get involved, and including potential players as well?
So if anybody out there wants to get involved, there's lots of clubs around. and anybody can go to any club and just have a kickabout on a Saturday and just throw a ball around. But whether you're a player or whether you just want to be involved is, if you want to be involved in a culture where we're going to challenge you, but the reward is that we're going to try and win everything. We're a performance club. If you want to be challenged and if you feel like you can contribute to a culture, then get in touch with us either through social media, and then we'll get back in touch with you. But if you feel like you've got something to offer, it doesn't have to be something that you know what it is. You don't have to come in and say, right, I'm going to be your secretary. But if you feel like you've got something to offer, we can find a place for you. That can be playing, it can be volunteering, it can be anything. Because, as we said before, if you've got something, an X factor, and we can help you thrive, that's what we want. So just give it a chance. It doesn't have to stick. If you don't stick with it, that's fine, but give it a chance. So if you want to be part of a culture, then here we are.
Sean, look, thank you for coming on. A very, I'd say, honest assessment, both yourself and of the club, and sort of everything that the club's had to go through for the last few years. It kind of feels like we've gone full circle with like this story over the last few years,
yeah.
and I just feel like you've you've held your integrity throughout the whole situation, really, and well, thank you for sort of putting your point across, and I'm looking forward to watching the new Birmingham Bulldogs, the rebrand of Birmingham Bulldogs, and seeing the club in a positive light.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I've had a great insight into you as a person, Birmingham Bulldogs as a club, and a real good reminder that we are dealing with people here. Yeah. It's a sport, and we all love it, but fundamentally it's about communication, it's about relationships, and it's about developing people. And it's been a great reminder for that. So thanks for that.